CNN shows the damage from a disastrous fire aboard America's largest and newest aircraft carrier back in March, revealing destruction far exceeding how it was portrayed publicly at the time. Quote, "It's either fight or die," one sailor told CNN about battling to put out the fire on the USS Gerald Ford. Hundreds of bunks where sailors slept were completely destroyed. What remained of the beds was charred, twisted metal. The ceiling appeared hollowed out, heaps of ashes all around. It took about 30 hours for the entire crew of nearly 4,500 to put out that fire. Quote, "I seriously thought we were going to lose the ship," the same sailor told CNN. At the time, the Navy said the fire had been contained and that 2 sailors had non-life-threatening injuries. But sources tell CNN that the fire control system failed. About 600 sailors lost their bunks as a result of it, and the fire impacted the ship's operations, forcing the $13 billion carrier to divert to Greece for repairs. Now, the fire wasn't the only problem on the ship's record 11-month deployment. The ship's toilets were repeatedly clogged. Video from on board obtained by CNN shows human waste filled to the brim of several toilets. The same sailor told us if you were in the forward section of the ship, you'd often have to walk all the way to the aft or the rear section just to find a toilet that worked. Asked about the extent of the fire and the fire control system's failure to function, a Navy spokesperson told CNN, quote, "The investigation of the fire is ongoing."
Hello, Bobby Jones here from MeidasTouch and Valor Media Networks. Trust. It's a very simple word. It's a very simple concept. But the weight that it carries in everyday life is significant. You have to have trust in relationships, business transactions, how one just generally lives their life. Well, in the particular case of the United States and its military, trust has been a cultural backbone since the military was formed in 1775. Why am I bringing all this up? Well, I'm doing so because President Donald Trump has a trust problem, not just with the American people, well documented, but he has a trust problem with the American military. Since Operation Epic Fury has started, we have seen a pattern of something happens, an initial report comes out, it's downplayed, it's now swept under the rug, only to find out later through either journalists or social media that the initial report that the administration gave was completely wrong. Completely wrong. And to be honest, I'm going to go over a couple of these incidents and show why. You go on social media, you go into Reddit and all these other areas, you have a lot of service members who are still on the active duty force expressing doubt and a lack of trust of the upper chain of command. Across every domain of Epic Fury since it started all the way back at the end of February, we have seen initial reports become issues of credibility later down the line. From the Gerald R. Ford, which we'll talk about, to actual casualties and how many people were affected, to aircraft being shot down. There is a reoccurring theme of sweeping things under the rug and minimizing the impact and the risk to American service members. Let's start with the Gerald R. Ford. March 12, 2026, there was a fire on that aircraft carrier. $13 billion piece of machinery, the world's most advanced technical warship. And the initial claim that came out of United States Central Command was no damage to propulsion, carrier remains fully operational. That's interesting because we then find out weeks later, especially after they return, that may not have been true. Sure, the carrier was still able to operate and meet those basic requirements. However, the risk went through the roof when you find out that the fire suppression system that was installed on that aircraft carrier failed to activate, which is why sailors had to fight a fire for 30 hours continuously to save themselves and to save the ship. Even when that rumor was confirmed, it was downplayed until CNN obtained actual video of what the damage was. And it looked like something straight out of a ghost ship archive. I mean, gutted. Now we know why over 600 sailors were sleeping on floors, on tables, wherever they could sleep, because the damage was that catastrophic. Okay, that coincides with the issues they had with sewage or the CHT system on that ship, where if you were on one part of the ship, you had to go to another part of the ship just to go to the bathroom. Mind you, you're already sleeping on the floor, a significant portion of them, making life even more stressful in an already stressful combat environment. There were 200 plus sailors that were treated for smoke inhalation. That was not initially reported. There were over 600 toilets that were seen to be destroyed or inoperable. And this is all laid on top of the longest deployment a carrier has had since Vietnam, over 320 days of continuous operations at sea. That is remarkable. But most importantly, that is a tall ask of anybody, even the most seasoned sailor, to deal with. And what did they get for all of that? They had Pete Hegseth waiting for them on the pier in Norfolk and proceeds to go into an awards ceremony that lasted hours. None of those sailors wanted to be there. They wanted to go home and see their families after being extended multiple times on deployment. This leads to just how the United States military has been reporting casualties. It's one thing for casualties to happen. It's another thing to be truthful with the people who are actually injured and their families, what's going on. Well, the casualty count of this conflict has fluctuated dramatically. When the April 8th ceasefire happened, we had a number of about 380 total casualties. You know, there was a certain amount that were killed in action, but mostly people who were wounded. That number jumped up to over 428. Then it went back down to 413. Then it's now 423 after it's been revised. What's been happening is the designation of casualties has shifted because if it wasn't serious enough, they wanted to take the numbers off, or if it became more serious, they had to change the number. The bottom line is they have never been honest about the casualty numbers because they understand how it plays out in the public sphere. It's not notifying families and making sure that these service members get the care that they need. It's all about trying to make it seem like this is a minimal issue, even though over 17 bases in the area of responsibility in the Middle East have been bombed. If you are a family member of one of those thousands of service members who are still stationed there, you are concerned. You want to know what's happening. And most importantly, you want to know if something does in fact happen to your loved one, that the American government is truthful and they are providing you with all the information they can, and that service member is being taken care of. We have heard from multiple families that, hey, this is not right, this has changed, et cetera, et cetera. ABC News has pressed on what the actual casualty numbers look like. And after pressing, you're seeing some of these things change. The bottom line is you're talking about almost over 700 troops who have been wounded or maybe, killed total together. And yet the CENTCOM and the president have said it's only 400, this, that, and the other. And of course, this is from the same man who famously said that a few people had concussions during his first term when Erbil Air Base in Iraq got hit, when it actually turned out they were traumatic brain injuries. So we don't know what's going on with the equipment, and now we don't know what's going on with the people. The reason I'm bringing this back up is because this past week, during President Trump's appearance at the NBA Finals, where he was very rudely welcomed, in passing on his return, he said that a U.S. Army Apache helicopter had been shot, had crashed, but these pilots had been retrieved. Now, he specifically said it went down, only to find out later that it was in fact shot down. And when it was revealed that it was shot down, an immediate escalation in the Strait of Hormuz and the Persian Gulf followed. The fact is, if you hear of any type of equipment casualty now, you have to look at it with a grain of salt, because the initial instinct of the White House is to bury it. This, of course, goes right in line with the whole Pentagon press corps and how they've been treated ever since this operation has started. But understand, here is the pattern that you're going to see moving forward as this thing escalates. depending on if a peace deal or a ceasefire happens. Number one, you'll get the initial claim. Number two, you'll get the quiet revision, i.e. they will put out the information as it becomes more accurate, but they will not broadcast it proudly. It will not be Pete Hegseth giving a press conference changing those numbers. And then understand this only happens because the media or somebody in social media or whatever have reported or put out on social media something that contradicts. Sort of like when the F-15s got shot down with friendly fire in Kuwait, they denied that until the video of the planes going down circulated around the world. But most importantly, and the thing that everyone watching this video should be highly upset about, there's no accountability. If you have a Tomahawk strike that kills 160 girls at a school, you haven't heard Hegseth say anything about it. No one's been held accountable. When you talk about a fire that puts 600 sailors on the deck sleeping, no one said anything about it. No one's done anything about it. It's this whole mentality of when we do it, it's right no matter what. And when someone else does it, we need to prosecute them to the fullest extent of the law. It's unbelievable. It's unbecoming. And it's how a military force starts to unwind at the seams.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.